Applications. I'm dialing in from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I think most of you might be here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I know that we may have some people that are outside of our region dialing in, but we just want to welcome you and say hello. If you didn't catch that, this is a recorded session, so I just wanted to disclose that. If you are not comfortable, you can feel free to disconnect yourself. But this is going to be a light-hearted conversation. I think one that we've been dying to have just in general, because we've been in the house for 2.5 years. And the conversation is going to be around rejuvenate, replenish, and recharge through travel. So my name is Drinal Foster. I'm the owner, CEO of Black Girl Travels. I'm going to introduce myself formally in just a moment, but as a board member of TC BANDD, this has been a conversation that we've been talking about. And, I want to talk a little bit about Black travel in particular. But we've been thinking about this, thinking about how can we do it? When do we do it? Again, the gates have opened, doors have opened, country borders have opened. And I know that people are anxious to get back and start traveling again or look for inspiration of travel. And so we want to be able to create that space for all of us here today. Research says that the great way to maintain mental wellness and help decompress and have a happier, more fulfilling life is through travel. And so we want to integrate mental health and travel into the conversation that we're going to have today. So what I'm going to do, we're actually going to start out first with just some grounding of kind of how we'll spend our next 55 minutes together. I will let you know that you are going to need a sheet of paper, a blank sheet of paper. If you have a marker, fantastic. A pencil will do, but if you have something that is big and bold and you'll be able to write on that, I'm going to come back to that at the end of the presentation and do a little exercise with all of you. Again, Drinal Foster. I am a Senior Vice President, Workforce Engagement Leader here at Wells Fargo. I'm in the technology department. I will tell you that I'm a HR practitioner, DEI practitioner, and I've been in a few different businesses within the Wells Fargo organization. In terms of community leadership, I'm very active in this Twin Cities market. I'm a transplant from Seattle. However, I've been in this market for some time. I'm not going to say a little time, it's been a long time. I bought a house and just didn't leave. So there you go, 16 years here in this market. But this is what I do for a profession. In terms of a traveler, I will tell you that I have 20 years of corporate travel experience, the last 8 years of international travel experience. I am a travel influencer, photographer, educator, speaker, brand ambassador. You can see some of the companies that I've had partnerships with. I'm a member of the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport Travel Advisory Council. I'm a travel contributor on ABC. And I am a curator of exceptional travel adventures. So I'm that person for me. So just to give you a little context and color about who I am. I'm also just going to quickly just touch on just one more little piece of information because I think it's powerful. In terms of just a travel profile, I mentioned that I've had international travel the last 8 years, minus the last, 2.5. I had the opportunity to do, again, great travel within my organization on business, but also as a leisure traveler. And so these are some of the things that I enjoy, the types of experience or, my preferences when it comes to travel. I am a solo traveler. I will tell you, I travel on a budget with a carry-on, and I also travel solo. Sun and beach, sand, that's my jam. The long weekends, I am the master of the long weekends. I work at a financial services company. So those federal holidays, I know how to plan a great getaway working around those. And then just some of the places that I visited. And then also just preferences in terms of how I travel. I am definitely a window person. Anytime someone says, Drinal, out of all these countries that you've been to, and it's been 45, which one is your favorite? And I always say, it's the next one. Again, there's just been so many amazing, incredible experiences, things that I love about the places that I visited, that it's really hard to just pick one. That's like for me impossible. However, there are places that I will revisit again. One of my favorite cities in the world on the top 10 list is New Orleans. Just came back from New Orleans from the Essence Music Fest and had an exceptional time. I'm going to jump down to the bottom in terms of the travel themes and how I got started with my own travel. It was in 2016. I was having a milestone birthday, a milestone anniversary, and I wanted to travel and didn't have anyone to travel with. And I said I wasn't going to wait for folks. And so I started with this 20 city birthday tour for the whole year. And my dear friend Jeanette is smiling because she remembers this. She was on one of those birthday tours, but this actually gave me the confidence, the ability to actually get out and adventure and actually start to see the world. I got my passport in 2009, and I didn't use my passport. My first stamp came in 2014. And so just think about that. At the time, I had a partner. They weren't a fan of traveling. I wanted to travel. I knew I wanted to see the world. And so that's kind of when I got started. But every year I had kind of a theme, if you will, to like what was the travel experience for the coming year. I would always pre-plan that. And you'll see on here, 2018, it was a year of just looking at magazines. So whatever country I saw, if I'm on my Delta flight and like, ooh, where's the Azores? I'm going. That's where I got the inspiration, kind of looking at magazines. But also, as I say, looking at magazines, noticing that, people like me were not reflected in a lot of the imagery. You didn't see a lot of people of color traveling, Black people traveling. And so that was something I was extremely passionate about, and definitely a narrative that I wanted to change. And just one more thing that I'll highlight is that I've been doing a lot of education of Black people, in particular our kids in the school system, and getting in front of those kids and not just talking about financial literacy, having a great career, but also let's talk about geography, let's talk about seeing the world. And I am so amazed when I talk with these kids and they've already been on a plane for the first time or had some experience traveling. I remember the first time I got on a plane, I was 18 years old, so I didn't really have like a deep relationship with travel. And you're going to hear our panelists talk a little bit about their relationship with travel. When did they get started? But I just give that context. I will also tell you that I'm really passionate about helping us as adults, women in particular, travel. Don't let anything get in your way or stop you from traveling, sis. Get up and go see the world. We got one shot at this, in terms of how we live our life. You hear a lot of times people say that I'm going to wait till I retire to start traveling. Well, no, you could do traveling now. Why wait? Who's to say that you're going to be an able-bodied individual able to travel and see the world? And so I use that, in terms of my why. I think the other pieces around, when you think about 45% of Americans having a passport, less than 5% of Blacks have a passport. And so again, how do we shift that? All right, I'm going to quit talking in just a moment. I got a couple more minutes before we jump to the panelists. These are just some of the places, some of my photos. This was a time where I was a short hair blonde girl. I will tell you, I did do a little bit of traveling. I laid low during the pandemic. I actually didn't travel internationally until this year. I went to St. Kitts, was there for 7 days, came home, turned around and went to El Salvador and finished out all of Central America. So I kind of have a method to the madness, if you will. But these are just some quick images that I thought I would share with all of you. So let's get into it. 9 reasons why travel is good for your mental health. So one thing, number one, and I took a couple of notes here because I think this is so important. And again, why this is related to, why we're all here today. Thinking about the last 2.5, 3 years. So think about the pandemic, thinking about George Floyd, thinking about all these different stressors that are part of our everyday life. But getting out and having the opportunity to try new things, to meet new people, to curb that boredom, but also to get out and have different experiences. One story I'll quickly tell you, I went to Bogota, Colombia, and, I do all of my own planning. I'm a DIY traveler, and I did a 4-hour bike ride in Bogota. I was not prepared to get on a bike for 4 hours, but it was one of the best experiences that I ever had. and then meeting up with people from that bike ride and having dinner together, breaking bread together. So those are just some of the other things that come with travel if you're open to that. A couple other things I'll hit on. Number two, the activities, walking, hiking, skiing. Research said that when we're closer to bodies of water, it reduces our blood pressure, just calms us. And so think about water features, but thinking about being next to a body of water. We have lakes in Minnesota. You have 10,000 of them, but again, a real body of water and having some of those experiences. I think those are important. Obviously, it's a great stress reliever, improving just our overall outlook on life, training our brain for better creativity. How do we think creatively? How do we bring maybe things that we've seen in another place into the work that we do, into conversations that we're having with family and friends? I think there's just a variety of different things that does. And then you can see just here, from an energy perspective, productivity, just overall stronger mental health and focusing on our well-being, being enjoyable and enjoying this life that we have. So those are just a couple of things I thought would be important just to share as we're getting ready to jump into this conversation. So what I like to do next is actually bring to our virtual stage our two travel panelists, my colleague on the TC Band board, Solomon Anderson, and then my dear friend, Jeanette Appold from Thomson Reuters, to come and actually dig into this topic of rejuvenate, replenish, recharge through travel, because these are people that have been doing it. And I know, Jeanette, you were doing a lot of it and have been. So looking forward to having this conversation with you. Just in terms of how we'll do kind of the remaining minutes of our time together, we're going to start just with a quick lightning round icebreaker, if you will, with Jeanette and Solomon. We have some set questions. We are going to open it up for some Q&A, probably the last 10 minutes of our time together. And I'm also going to show you a video clip, so you'll want to definitely have your pen and paper down and thinking about some tips that you can walk away with from today's session. So I'm going to start first with you, Jeanette. If you can just give us a little introduction, name, location, what do you do? What exactly do you do as a senior commissioning editor? And then I'll invite Solomon to come up and do a quick introduction before we do the lightning round. So I'll kick it over to you, Jeanette.
Sure. So, my name is Jeanette Appold. Originally, I'll say I was born in Arkansas, raised in Massachusetts, have been in Minnesota since '91 when I arrived for law school. And so people ask me where my accent is from, what island. I'm probably a mixture of that Arkansas and Massachusetts. I was raised in Massachusetts.
Good to know.
No island, it's just that Southern and that East Coast mix. And so I probably practiced for probably a year. And so I've been at Thomson Reuters for 25 years. Take the 1 year I got laid off, and I call that my adult gap year, where I visited like 5 countries. It was the best year of my life. So Thomson Reuters has been my whole career, a number of jobs. So my current role I've been in for 5 years, a little over 5.5 years, senior commissioning editor. I work for the practical law business. So Thomson Reuters is, as you guys generally work for these huge conglomerates, big, huge corporations. My husband also works for Thomson Reuters in a different business, but a commissioning editor. I talk to partners at large law firms all the time. That's my job, and get them to write content for us for free.
Okay.
So,
I like it.
My job is more of that. It's the personality. How can I first get a call in with a partner at a large law firm, particularly like New York or California? And how do I engage them? And sometimes I try to use travel. If I see anything on their bio that mentions travel, that's my end. We're going to talk about travel.
Okay.
And that's what I do for Thomson Reuters. Started as a reference attorney and have kind of have had probably 6 roles in the 25 years.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Well, come on up, Solomon. Want to hear from you. If you could tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yep. Hey, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, depending on your time zone. My name is Solomon Anderson. I was born and raised here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Powderhorn Park area, if you are familiar with the lay of the land. And I am an Oracle DBA by trade. And so if you're not familiar with databases or Oracle technologies in general, I am one of the people who helps build reports, keep and maintain data for large organizations like Thomson Reuters. I've actually worked with a few Thomson Reuters folks on other boards. I was a member of Twin Cities Oracle User Group. And so like Drinal, I try to be involved in the community, though I'm not quite as involved or well traveled yet. I am trying to get on Drinal's level one day. Outside of just data work, I also mentor quite a bit through a number of different programs, one of which is the Minnesota SIM Partnership. If you're in the Twin Cities area, I highly recommend, or if you or someone you know lives in the Twin Cities area and has kids, middle school, high school age, who are looking to get into technology, robotics, things like I do, feel free to give them a call. Greatly support them. And yeah, that is me. I
Oh,
travel
awesome.
quite a bit. I think I do pretty well for my age. I've been to a number of different countries, both in South America, in North America, Canada, and Mexico, to be specific. And I'm looking to add to that list. And yeah, that picture there is a picture in Colombia, Cartagena. If you haven't been yet, highly recommend it. It's a beautiful place.
Awesome. And Jeanette, tell us quickly where this photo was at.
India. That was
India.
one of my trips to India. Well, actually, one trip to India. But
Ah, okay. Well, I'm going to stop sharing because I want the team to be able to see these illustrious travelers. And we're going to start off first just with this lightning round. I called it Spill the Tea. And so, and again, please, you guys use the chat. We definitely want to be active in this room, in this space. But I'm going to start with the first question. We're just going to popcorn back and forth. Okay. So you guys ready?
you ready?
All right. So solo travel or group travel? And let's start with Jeanette and go to Solomon.
Solo.
I prefer group travels now, just because my I travel a lot with my college friends, but I am going to be doing some solo traveling up next year, hopefully, Lord willing.
Awesome. Flight or road trip?
Flight.
Oh, it depends on where you're going. Depends on where you're going. I'm a partial to road trips just because I took a lot of them as a kid. I have family who live in Alabama, and so we would go on road trips from here, Michigan, visiting family. But if we're going more than 12 hours road trip, no,
Ooh,
that's my cutoff. That's my cutoff.
I got 3 hours. That's all I got. That's all I got. Hotel or Airbnb?
All these questions are really depends, but I will stay hotel.
Yes.
Why hotel? Just quickly.
Because mostly I travel solo. So I like people to know where I'm coming and going as a solo female traveler. And so I feel like at least a front desk person noticed that I left or came back. So
you're on the camera. You're
Right.
on camera. Yeah. All right, Solomon, what'd you say?
I agree, mostly because of all-inclusive resorts. If you haven't been to an all-inclusive resort, those are lovely. Highly recommend them.
All right. Out of the country or in country?
Out.
Out, yes, out.
Travel agent or DIY travel?
DIY.
I like DIY too, but I am going to be trying out a travel agent. One of my friends recently started their own consulting
Okay.
travel company, and so I'm gonna go through her for one of my trips at least coming up.
Awesome. A couple more. Travel for food or travel for culture?
Culture.
Culture, because the food is part of the culture, right?
Right.
All right. Trick question. All right. Relaxing vacation or adventurous vacation?
Adventure, if you mean go to museums and doing historical stuff, not hiking, not doing that kind of adventure.
Okay.
I love adventures. I want the golf cart. I want the dirt bike. I'm trying to get off the off roads, go to the secret beaches, climb all that. I love all that kind of stuff.
We do bike rides and things like that, but that's not my culture. I like museums.
Okay.
Food.
Carry on or check luggage?
carry on if I'm solo.
Yeah, carry on. I try to pack light as possible.
Well, you heard my intro. That's the only, I'm not checking luggage. I'm not gonna do it. All right, last question. Selfie stick or ask someone to assist?
I'm terrible at both. So I'm truly not a selfie. I'm trying to get better at being in the pictures. For me, I love photography, so I'm taking pictures of where I am. So it's not about me being in the picture, but I'm trying to get better.
Yeah, I agree. I like taking pictures of scenery, although I am much more of the set up the camera with the timer and run back into the photo type of person.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. That just gave us a little background into kind of how you like to travel, what your preferences are. Hopefully gave our audience a little bit more information about you. So I have a series of questions, and what I'll just say as succinctly as you can, because again, we got a few of them, and I also want to make sure that we get questions in from this audience because they're dying to know. But let's start with you first, Solomon. I want to understand kind of what's been your why for travel, your relationship even with travel. Maybe start that piece first, and then also add on there what's been your why for traveling.
Yeah, well, I say I started traveling pretty early on. My dad ended up moving to another state, and so from the time I was maybe 5 or 6, I was one of those unaccompanied minors on flights, traveling to see him back and forth. And so I started off early, and then once I started making enough money to be able to afford to travel, I took it a priority and was really intentional about visiting new places, seeing new not just countries, but kind of embedding myself in new cultures. And so before traveling to places like Colombia, I didn't know that there was a lot more Black people outside of the country than what is advertised. Like you were saying earlier, we're often not depicted in those international scenes. And so seeing that firsthand, being not just there, but getting to interact with the people who live there and who share that history has been a great experience. And so I always encourage people to travel and get out there.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Jeanette?
What got me started? Well, I was a voracious reader when I was a kid. I read everything. And product of a single home, not a lot of money, like government cheese, not a lot of money. And so when I got to college and I took a history of Canada class, that was my first passport. That was my first time leaving the country. And from then on, I was hooked. Just the different cultures and seeing the value and seeing places that I've read about. For me, that's, I check a box. I read that story that talked about so many places. And so that's kind of was my why. I just wanted to see the places I read about when I was young.
Yeah. So just to add on to that, just tell us a little bit about what are some of those places that you've had the privilege of visiting, exploring.
All right. So
And maybe some of your all right. Yeah, give us that profile and maybe tell us your top 3 places.
Okay, so I have hit 51, and 51 was Kenya a couple months ago.
Nice.
50 was Haiti. And so probably the top 3 that I was, so enamored with the idea was Spain, getting to Spain, because I had taken Spanish through up to college, and just the fascination with everything Spanish, Spain Spanish at that time. And so Spain, I was like, I have arrived when I landed in Barcelona, because we were going on a cruise. And I still, feel like I have only touched the tip of that. Like Solomon, I don't generally go back to countries, but I've been back to Rome like 3 times, in Naples, and those kind of places, just because the history of, going to Herculaneum and going to Pompeii, those things that I have read about. So, and I would say my other favorite country, it was Ireland. Surprisingly, Ireland. I loved it.
Awesome. And then how about you, Solomon? I know that you do both international, but also even US tourism.
Yeah, so a lot of my US tourism comes from my days as an athlete. I'm a former college athlete. I played rugby for a number of years. And through that, I was able to, go to places like Denver for the first time, Pennsylvania, New York. And so that is part of what drives my, travel aspirations to these days. And like for example, next year, I have a goal of getting to France for the Rugby World Cup. And so, going places like that. But my favorite place that I've been so far has to be, it's a tie. It's a tie between Colombia, Cartagena, just being a part of just being there. And if for those of you who might not know, Colombia is the location of the first free town in all of Americas. It's called Palenque, and so if you have a chance to visit there, again, highly recommend it. And then also Belize. Belize was beautiful. I got to visit a couple of the islands, walk around Cape Cocker all day. Like it was just amazing being around, not just this body of water, like you said, just relaxing, but also being there, seeing and interacting with people there, and picking up on parts of the culture. Like for example, before I went to Belize, I had no idea that people loved Chicago Bulls, not just because of Michael Jordan, but because they get WGN news and they can use the sports.
Ah,
So
got
just
it.
being there, learning that, and just being in those communities has been a highlight.
Awesome, awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the pandemic and, kind of how were you guys surviving during the pandemic? Because I know that I was someone that traveled at least twice a month, once at minimum, maybe twice a month somewhere international, right? And then everything shutting down. Were you one of those people that were traveling during the pandemic? I know that flights, you could catch some super, super low flight deals if you were that brave soul. Because again, this is before the vaccine came. And then maybe even after the vaccine, Solomon, what was your take on that? How did you manage? Because again, even thinking about overall well-being, mental health, I know I personally struggled with some mental health challenges
Yeah,
during that isolation period.
Yeah, same for me too. I noticed, pretty early on in the pandemic that even though we were working from home, I was often working longer hours, and I was on a 24/7 team. And so, the organization I was working with at that point always had someone on the clock. And so just helping out with that, I noticed that it was taking a toll on me, not just, mentally, but physically, just being tired all the time. And so my spouse and I, we went to Belize while the pandemic was happening, right after we got our vaccines, and we could travel a little bit more freely. We did have some restrictions just in Belize. They had, a strict curfew, and so we had to work around that. But I'm still very glad that we went on that trip because not only was it relaxing, but I learned a bunch, and it was just great to be, somewhere else outside of the house, not necessarily, somewhere in the city or even, in the same state. Just being somewhere away helped kind of reduce that stress and was, refreshing and rejuvenating for me.
Awesome, awesome. How about for you, Jeanette?
So I did things I don't normally do during the pandemic. I didn't travel that much. We didn't travel. Well, I didn't start traveling again until November of last year. So we rented a big, huge Airbnb in Wisconsin that had all the amenities, was owned by a French woman. So it felt like going somewhere different. The outdoor swimming pool and all that. So the kids felt like they were away, and it gave me something to do, to plan, to get my traveling. For me, travel, half the joy and half the what I get from it is the planning, the thinking about it, the having to look forward to. So it's not necessarily, hey, I'm here. It's this leading up to that gives me the greatest kind of where I get my energy. And then we also did a road trip to the Dakotas and the Montana. I really like road trips, but what? Pandemic. I was happy to do something and get away. And we stayed at a nice cabin in Big Sky and did Yellowstone. We did, all that, Mount Rushmore. So it was nice family time during the pandemic to get away.
It sounds like it.
So in last November, I was like, ta-da, this is almost over. Thinking it wasn't really, but I went to Portugal with my husband, and then I went to Egypt solo in December. And that got because like you, I don't travel monthly, but I have a goal of 3 to 4 countries, new countries every year. And to not be able to do that, just was kind of little mentally challenging.
And I don't know if you guys remember this, just speaking about, the not the ability to travel, but RVs rentals were up because people were on
Everything.
road trips and just getting out of their house, getting out of their environment. So the RV business boomed, during
Yes.
those couple of years. So good perspective. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious, just kind of piggybacking on work, travel, when it comes to separation, I know I personally travel with my laptop, so I'm probably working unofficially. But again, having that ability, how do you separate, when you're on vacation, being on vacation and not being connected, to work? Do you truly unplug? And I'll start with you, Jeanette.
I truly do unplug. My husband, who is a VP at Thomson Reuters, does not generally completely unplug. So I understand your perspective that you have your laptop. Me, I'm like, yeah, they're not paying me on vacation. But I did bring my laptop to Portugal because I had almost ran out of vacation time. And so the time zone was perfect. So I would do all the things during the day with my husband. And right after dinner, it would be time to work. And so would work in the evenings. So it was perfect. I don't usually do that, but I'm gonna do that more often now. That now here at Thomson Reuters, we have a new benefit that is work from anywhere for 4 weeks of the year kind of thing. So I'm gonna figure out how I can work from South Africa in February. So I will bring my laptop for that, those reasons. But generally, I am one that I'm on vacation. I don't even think about work at all. From the moment I shut my computer down, put my out of office on, I'm out.
I love that you just said your company has expanded the boundaries and like again borders. You can go and work. Is there like a list of countries that they will allow you? Because there are some regulations. So for us here at Wells, we can no longer travel, work, in another country just based on some of those tax regulations, et cetera. But did they give you kind of like, hey,
There
here's kind of
is,
a
and
short list?
based on where you work for the country, so we're in the US, so there's a list that are US specific. So I looked at that list as soon as we got it. Grenada, which I'm going to next week, is not on the list. Neither is Guatemala, which I'm going to in November, which is okay. But it was a nice, really robust list of places that we could work at for a week or so. And I think it's a tax penalty, so just,
Yeah,
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 for those
yeah.
reasons. So,
I
but it
was
was
thinking
nice to have a
about
list.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about those countries that said, hey, we're open to remote workers. I remember Hawaii had something, Barbados. Again, just really encouraging people like, hey, come hang out here during the pandemic and work. So how about for you, Solomon? What's your boundaries that you put in place when you're on vacation?
Yeah, so due to the nature of my work, unfortunately, I usually have to bring my laptop along with too. But when I go on vacations, anytime I go or I'm planning on spending some time away from my regular work schedule, I make sure to communicate to my team. And when I'm actually traveling somewhere, I make hard boundaries around time. And so, I'll dedicate, maybe like Jeanette was saying, from the morning time to the late afternoon, all travel stuff. And then I'll check in on the computer after, or before dinner to make sure everything is copacetic at work. And then, oops, sorry, getting calls. That's work now. Just making sure that I'm having time dedicated to the vacation, even if I do have to do some type of work. But luckily, I've been fairly lucky in not having to do anything super major while on vacation, because I try to plan around, major projects and whatnot.
Awesome.
Now, remember when we went to Turks and Caicos, was there like 8 of us, 8 to 10 of us? And you get up in the morning and there was like 5 people on their laptops working in this big Airbnb that we rented in Turks and Caicos. It was
Beautiful.
really
Yeah.
beautiful to see everyone
But
doing their thing, but we're still enjoying time with each other. But
yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go, I want to talk a little bit, we're going to get into some saving ideas, some best practices, tips that you guys have to offer. But I'm curious to hear you talk about when you're on vacation or traveling to a new destination, what are like some of the things that you look forward to doing or a place in that city, in that country that you're looking forward to doing? And I'll start with you, Jeanette.
do so love museums. So I will already be looking at the museums list of what kind of museums do they have. So when I went to Chile, you were supposed to go with me on that trip, but you got sick. I did 5 museums in one day. There's 20 museums in Santiago. and I had a plan of what time one opened. I'd Uber to the next. So I love museums. I love cultural things like that. I also love a good cocktail. So I'll look for the hidden speakeasy kind of, creative cocktail bar. And I will indulge and do a Michelin starred restaurant, even if I'm by myself. I will, $300 you say
Fourth,
for the meal. All right, I'm in. So those are things I look forward to when I travel, particularly museums.
when in Rome, right? How about you, Solomon?
So I'm also very impartial to museums. I love art. I have a little bit of an art collection, so I try to make it a point to, not just go to museums, but also purchase art from local artists wherever I travel. And so I have a piece from Colombia, I have a piece from Belize, and I make that a priority. In addition to just art and music, I try to go to concerts, even if it's a local show with a band that is local to the town. I love just going there, being around the people, and then also churches. And so churches and temples as well. I love history, like Jeanette. I read quite a bit, and I know that churches have had a huge place in a lot of these communities, especially places like Colombia. And so visiting, whether it's a Buddhist temple or a Christian Catholic church, just being at those, I guess, iconic cultural locations has always been a bucket list thing that I do whenever I travel.
Yeah, awesome. One of the things that I do, you heard me in my intro talk about traveling solo, carry on, and on a budget. So my budget thing, when I'm going to any place, I'm looking for the hop on, hop off bus. That is by far the easiest, quickest way to see all these places. I'm gonna buy me a 48-hour bus pass for 24 to 48 hours, less than $50. I'm also going to probably hire that Uber driver, or I'm going to look and see kind of who the hotel would recommend as a tour guide, because I like to get deeply immersed in the places that I'm at. I want to be with the locals. I want to go to that hole in the wall spot that has the best food, kind of finding out where the locals hang out. And so those are some things that I look forward to doing. And again, like both of you, the museums, the history of these places. I remember just being in Scotland, and the Queen of England, she uses this house, the castle, for her summer home, and having the ability to tour and just looking at the grandiose of these institutions that we see on TV, that just thinking about how long that history is, for the UK. We don't have a lot of those things, but we do, but not with deep history. So those are some of the things I look forward to. I want to pivot because I know this is definitely something that's top of mind for folks listening in. Give us some of your, ways to save. What are some of the top 2-3 best practices that you guys have on deals for travel? And I'll start with you, Jeanette, and then go over to Solomon, and then I'm going to chime in.
I saw someone briefly in the chat mention something about credit cards. I'm a firm believer, like I have status on because of my Delta American Reserve card. I have Chase, the highest form of travel card for Chase as well. And I look for a deal. I'm in travel groups because I want to know if someone hears a deal. I'm in our group with Drinal here in the Twin Cities. We're on WhatsApp. If someone hears a deal or sees a deal, they let everyone else know. Not necessarily will everyone jump on it, but we've done a lot of, been able to do group trips because we've let each other know that there's a deal to South Africa. I went to Kenya because there was a deal last year. So I went to Kenya this year on that deal. So I network a lot with other travel enthusiasts. I use my credit cards. Guatemala, $183 round trip. Because
nonstop. You said
nonstop.
nonstop.
No, actually, I have to go to Miami from here.
Oh, okay.
So one stop in Miami, I'm okay with that. $183. I'm gonna buy it and ask questions later. Decide the hotel and all that stuff. Ask questions later. That's why my husband doesn't really get to travel with me that much, because I see a deal, I get out of bed, I'm like heading to the main computer in our house and say, I'm going to Budapest. You want to go? What about the kids? Well, I'm going by myself then, and I'm booked. Because you can't waste time. And so I look for deals. I get the text messages from there's a deal, whatever. I'm all about the deal. I will spend the money if I have to, but I'm all about finding the deal. and getting on it as soon as I can. So that's, one of my main places of saving money. I do use the credit cards. I do use miles to book trips, particularly family trips when there's 4 of us getting to Hawaii. I had to wipe up all my Delta miles for that trip. And my husband does the Hilton points. We had to wipe all his points out for the hotel. So, I do use credit cards for that definitely.
I want to touch on something, a lot of questions around, what groups are you in? I know one that we both subscribe to, because I don't have time to go and search for the deal, so I pay for a subscription.
Yep.
I think you do as well with our local Thrifty Traveler.
Yep, exactly.
Who else would you recommend? Is there another place that you can think of with cheap deals or groups that you would
There's one
suggest?
that's Scott's travels deals or whatever, and they send emails when I pay extra for the premium for that group as well, like $15 a year. Thrifty gives me a lot of deals. And then there's so many, and even the non-traditional ones like Gate One Travel, or I can't even think, Travelocity, or I just subscribe to so many emails. Delete. Oh, a deal. Then so I get a lot of extra emails that sometimes they're just, once a year they happen to have a deal that, voila. And once one of them gets the deal, like the Guatemala, the other ones start trickling. Hey, Guatemala has, so it just pays to subscribe to as many of these, join groups. There's so many Black travel groups on Facebook, so many.
Yeah, so many.
And people love to tell you how they did it. And so I take notes. You went to Guatemala? You hired what guy? Let me hire that guy, because there's 4 people between these couple travel groups that says this guy is the bomb. He picked me up at the airport, dropped me up at the hotel, and then was my guy the whole time. So I hired someone from Guatemala. I hired my Kenya guy based on what I saw in one of the Black travel groups. He was the sweetest guy, and I had a great trip. Felt safe in Kenya, solo trip on safari by myself, all that stuff, because of guides. So, there's so many ways to find deals. Travel agents are great, but sometimes they don't know the deals. You can find the same deals that they find before they get them. So that's what I do.
So lots there. Again, I heard you say credit card, so you're a fan. I'm not, but got that. So points, miles, maximizer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say any brands, where I'm at, but Wells Fargo also has a reward card. I keep my miles, my points. I treat it like rainy day money. So that's a little difference in terms of how we do that. But I also want to just add on, if there's places that you're wanting to go, use Instagram, do that geo hashtag or just whatever hashtag, but that's also a great way. Solomon, what will you give? Because I want to transition to this next segment and then make sure that we get to more questions. But you guys keep dropping your questions in the chat. We're looking at them. We're going to incorporate those into, the last 12 minutes that we have. But go ahead, Solomon.
Yep, I won't add too much. I'll just say 2 resources that I use quite a bit. One is SkipLag. If you haven't heard of it before, it is a website that allows you to basically get flights for cheap. And then using layover.
With the caution,
Yes,
give that
caution.
disclaimer.
Yes, with caution of having layovers in various cities. And so what I'll do often is I'll book a trip for somewhere and, maybe purposely miss a flight in order to stay somewhere for a cheaper amount of money. Also, Google Flights. I use Google Flights a lot. And if you don't use one already, I recommend checking and using checking prices using a VPN, because often you'll have deals that are available for some localities that aren't available for places in the Midwest. And if you just use a VPN, you can get some better deals that way too.
What do you mean VPN? I don't know if everyone knows VPN.
VPN is a virtual private network. Again, I'm a tech guy, so it's a little nerdy, but you can often add like a Chrome extension to your Chrome browser or Safari browser, Firefox, whatever browser you use, to change your internet location, and that can help you find deals and just kind of work around the advertised deals that you get served typically.
Awesome. All right, well, I'm going to pause on the 2 of you for a moment. I'm going to ship over here and talk about some best ways to save. This is a 7-minute clip. I'm not going to show all 7 minutes. We'll send this clip out to you so you can see it.
Oh boy, look at this. Welcome
Eric,
back.
how's that sound? Can you guys hear the sound okay?
Yeah.
No or yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Back to the Great Minnesota Live Getaway. You don't need to think about snow and cold when you can look at this. This is the Marriott Resorts. This is in Fiji. Oh man. Let's just stay on that.
Yeah. I wonder who's staying in that little over-the-water bungalow today.
I know, well, someday. All right, well, this is all about the airfare, right? So when planning vacation, airfare is often the biggest expense. A family of 4 can easily spend thousands on tickets alone. You could spend even more than that, like say you're trying to get to Gulf Shores, Alabama during Christmas time.
You could have bought a car for the price of your tickets.
For example.
Our next guest is super savvy, though, when it comes to getting tickets on the cheap, and she's here today sharing her favorite sites. Drinal Foster from Black Girl Wanders, and welcome back to Minnesota Live. How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good. You and I share a love for a particular app, and have I gotten you on board with it yet, Chris?
Yep.
Okay, so tell everyone at home your favorite app and why you love it, and then I'll tell you why I love it too.
Awesome. Well, I'll start first with Google Flights. So Google Flights is my go-to, when I'm thinking about getting away, especially now we're in the midst of our favorite Minnesota winter. This is where I'm going to go. I'm going to go and look and see kind of what kind of flight deals can I find, somewhere, we've been sun-starved for such a long time. Where can I get the cheap flights? And so I will come here. All the airlines, domestic, international, are here with Google Flights, and there's so many bells and whistles that are connected to this website that you just have to love. So number one, do you want a nonstop flight, a direct flight? Thinking about how to travel from Minnesota down to the Caribbean, for example. It could take hours, upwards to maybe 20 hours. Who has that kind of time when you have a short amount of time available for vacation? So again, looking to see what airline am I going to travel with: Delta, United, Spirit, Sun Country, and again, just finding some incredible deals. I was just looking at St. Kitts. So to get from Minneapolis to St. Kitts in the Caribbean, looks like Delta would be the best option, roughly, $600-700 versus a few extra $100 on like United, for example. And the importance around those layovers, how much time is it going to take to get there, because that could eat up a chunk of your vacation time.
And it's great if you know where you want to go, but it's also a great site if you just have a couple of days and you want to get away, because you can also just not type in a destination, but type in your dates and search, and the map comes up and it shows you all the fun places.
See what pops up. It tells you the flight calendar, the fares, outwards to 12 months. And so it's just a really great website to utilize. And again, just to start to plan some of that vacation.
For sure.
And
So,
not break the bank.
Next thing, I didn't realize this was a thing, but apparently you can travel now, pay later, sort of almost like finance that, which may be a really nice option for people.
This actually started to boom, I think, during the pandemic. I just saw a lot of advertisement. And when you're checking out, when you're online shopping, you may see something with one of these service providers that offers the service, but pretty much you can go ahead and travel now and actually pay for your trip in installments, and there's zero interest on that, for example. And so there's a few different vendors. One is Klarna, another one is Affirm. One that does probably a lengthier installment payment is called Uplift. And so again, another way, and especially if you are a family of 4, to your point, Chris, thinking about paying for that vacation. The benefit here is that you get to travel now versus, making those ongoing payments. Think of it as a modern day layaway or some sort.
Right.
But that's a big business right now, and it's growing.
It kind of caught my attention when Chris said a couple of minutes ago that there is an airline where you actually recommend you buy your ticket at the counter the day that you fly, which I thought that was not even looked upon. I thought it was frowned upon.
Yeah, so actually I just found one airline, and so that one airline actually is Spirit. And I am a friend of our budget airline, so I fly Spirit, I'll fly Frontier, but I also fly the full service airlines. But what I love about Spirit is that you have the ability to go to the counter and actually save on some of the fees, the concessions fees, the air tax, airport taxes. There's just a number of deep discounts that you could take advantage of. I recently flew to Las Vegas, $78 round trip on Spirit. You just need to know kind of what that experience is going to look like, the additional add-ons that you may need to pay for. But those are some really deep discounts. I was at the airport yesterday for an event, bought a round trip ticket to El Salvador, which is going to come up next month, and all in $200.
So
Wow.
you just walked up and purchased it for advance, not to fly that day.
Not to fly that day, but
Yeah.
flying that day is also an option too.
All right, so I'm going to stop there. We're going to send that link out for all of you. There's a few different segments that I have with KSTP, but I just wanted to bring that in because I hope some of you were taking notes. I was looking at the chat and I know some folks said they are not friends with Spirit. I'm a friend of Spirit. I'm sorry. If you get that big seat, even if it's available, that $30, $40, and you're going to fly comfortably and not be back there, I'm going to do that. So again, that helps with my budget planning. I'm not a fan of credit cards, so I do. I use cash. I use prepaid cards a lot of times too. I load my cards. I've been bamboozled when I've been on vacation as well, have my card compromised. And so there's just different things that I really encourage folks to think about. But I want to just get a couple of questions. I'm going to ask folks to just raise their hand. We're going to quickly do some questions, and I had a couple more things. If you can stick with us, fantastic. Great if you have to drop, but I do want to make sure that I put a promotion in before we hit the bottom of the hour, and then we'll stay behind and be able to answer a couple more questions. But are there anyone that has a question? You want to raise your hand, and I'm also going to ask you to come on camera if you could. So if you can use your hand raise option. And I don't see anyone raising their hand, but maybe I saw Nancy. Nancy, you're raising your hand. Eric, I don't see. Is that under reaction? Where's the raise hand under reactions? If you have a question, raise your hand. But I'm going to start first with my girl, Nancy Corsaw. Hey, Nancy. Uh-oh, we can't hear you. You're off of mute, but you don't have sound. Darn. Okay. You figure that out. Let's see if we can get you back. Is there anyone else with a hand raised? Yes, and I do not want to butcher your name. Shakina?
Shekinah, real close.
Shekinah, thank you. Please ask your question.
So I wanted to know from the standpoint, is the clear and pre-check worth it? I know that you pay us some at the beginning, but I want to know your expertise. Is it worth the investment?
For sure.
I think you'll get 3 hand waves on that one. I mean,
it's the combination. It's the combination of clear and pre-check. Boy, I tell you, coming out of that MSP sometimes, especially a spring break, just clear gets you to the beginning, the top of the pre-check line. It's so, yeah, the combination is fabulous.
Yeah, if you've never flown through Hartsfield-Jacksonville Airport in Atlanta, you need that.
That's the express. That's the express lane. The express lane to your gate, and even just to add one additional piece, global entry. If you guys are not familiar with global entry, if you're traveling internationally, that's the express line to get you back into the U.S. once your plane deboards. There's been times where we're coming off of, getting off our planes, and all the planes land at the same time, and it's these folks that just came off these cruises, and the line is down and around. It's going to take you an hour to get through customs. So global entry is something I would recommend. But thank you for your question. How about one more quick question? Anyone want to raise their hand for one more quick question? And maybe there's not one more quick question. Maybe we just did a really wonderful job and setting this session up. So one thing I want you to do is actually pull out that piece of paper, and I want you to write on that sheet of paper as large as you can. What's one thing that you're going to do? What are you going to commit to doing? And so again, that was just a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper. If you have a felt pen, fantastic. If you just have a regular piece of paper, I'm just going to give you a quick 30 seconds. And for those of you that have done this, I want you to turn on your camera. If you did this, your commitment to action as a result of today's call. Okay, I'm going to ask you to turn on your camera. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to actually hold up your commitment, because we want to see what you committed to doing. So for those of you that just did it, hey, Natasha, I see you turned on your video, so she must got something for us. Who else got something for us? So on the count of 5, we want you to reveal what you wrote. and put it up to your camera. So let's make sure we can see you all. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, Japan solo trip. Keep it there, keep it there, keep it there. We're gonna do this quick screenshot because this is awesome. Thank you guys. Awesome, awesome. Well, just quick closing comments. I got to do a couple plugs. I just want to quickly thank our 2 panelists. Thank you so much, Jeanette and Solomon, for sharing your experience and being here today. We so appreciate you. I also want to thank everyone that's here. We appreciate you for coming. I just wanted to let you know, this is kind of how you can find me. I do travel workshops. I'll be advertising some things on my website as well. I'm active on Instagram, particularly in the stories. But again, this is kind of where you can find me. And then I also want to just do a quick plug. So last month we did the Future of Work event, and there was one session that was just in high demand. And we're going to bring that back and do a part 2, when to leave and when to stay. And so I'm going to bring this up on the screen. For those of you that are interested, I think this is going to be a dynamic presentation. You know, my fellow board member, Eric Black, my girl, Alex Merritt. I don't know Raphael, but I know I've heard of great things from Mr. Eric Alexander from him. He's from Johnson & Johnson. They're going to be a part of this panel discussion that we're going to have regarding when to leave and when to stay. So if you want to just go ahead and bring up your phone, scan on that QR code, that'll take you directly to our registration. And I recognize that we are over on time. And so I just want to officially close out the session. Thank you, Jeanette and Solomon, for sharing your travel stories, your adventures, what you enjoy. And thanks to all of you. And we hope you have a great rest of your week.